You're listening to the Baumbastic Podcast with Andrew Ellis on Inside Arkansas.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Baumbastic Podcast presented by Inside Arkansas and hosted by Andrew Ellis. It is Monday. It is May 12th. It is a great day outside. Some good weather in the Northwest Arkansas area. Hope everyone's doing well. And we are now entering the final week of the regular season. It seems like just yesterday I was doing these pods and I was like, man, we're almost there to where we have real scrimmages to talk about. I was doing all these episodes that were just talking about the team and waiting on. At this point, we didn't even have scrimmages to talk about leading up to the season. And so it was like, I felt like I was just scraping the bottom of the barrel, trying to find anything I could to talk about. And now here we are at the end of the year. And I'm like, I feel like it's moving too fast. There's like too much going on and I can't talk about it all. But that's why we have the Baumbastic Podcast. That's why we're here every day cranking the content out on this Inside Arkansas YouTube channel and the Baumbastic Podcast feed. So make sure you're subscribed to both. Leave us a thumbs up if you like this. Leave us a good 5-star review and tell us how good we are. We always love that kind of stuff. But for real, appreciate everybody for being here with me today. As you know, on Mondays, that's when we hand out our weekend winners. So we're going to talk about the top individual performances of the weekend. We're also going to wrap up kind of the closing thoughts on how we feel about the Arkansas-LSU series. I did an episode last night, but I really, as soon as I finished recording, I remember being like, I don't know what the hell I said. I was so tired. I was kind of out of it. I'm scared to listen back because I'm sure I said some stuff that I didn't feel great about. I'm sure I didn't word it as eloquently and as charmingly as I'm going to hope to do today. But I really do. I always, and I say this a lot, that like I always like to come back on Monday after a night of sleep, after thinking about it for a while, after processing it, and give a little bit more background on kind of how I feel, where I think things move forward for the Arkansas Razorbacks. So we're going to do all of that here on today's show. But I do want to remind you guys, we are brought to you by Alumni Hall, our good friends. We're going to be there Friday. If you're coming in town for the Arkansas-Tennessee series, the Inside Arkansas live crew will be there in the store Friday. That's where we will be filming our show that day, recording our show that day. So come by. We're always handing out gift cards. We're always, there's always some type of deal going on. There's always some cool item on sale. I love going to Alumni Hall, loving to check out what they have. Always walk away with something. The ultimate Razorback shopping experience. You can check those guys out over at 3417 North College Avenue. Even if you don't want to come hang out with us, go by, get you some stuff. If you're going to the games this weekend, get geared up. Always love what they have. And if you want to check out what they have, you can visit their online store, insidearkansas.com/alumni hall. The promo code HOGSBY20 will give you 20% off your purchase online or in store. If you want to come see us Friday, want to come hang out, give us a fist bump, whatever. Maybe you get a gift card out of the deal. Maybe you get a signed Ben Bobby baseball, something like that. But worst case scenario, you can use that 20% promo code in store, and they'll know that you're friends with us, and it'll make us look cool. And we love that. So appreciate them for all they do for us. And seriously, it is the best in Razorback apparel, the ultimate Razorback shopping experience. We appreciate them. So putting a bow on the Arkansas-LSU series, we always say this thing where when we're going into conference play, we're like, this is where we find out the real. This is where we separate the men from the boys. We kind of look at it as an exciting time because you're playing these non-conference games and you're whipping up on Charlotte, you're whipping up on Portland or whatever, but you kind of want to see your team against the best. We look at our team on paper and we think, hey, this team's got a chance to be pretty good. We know Dave Van Horn's going to have a chance. We see them whip up on some teams in non-conference, but you're kind of in the back of your mind thinking, all right, but can we beat Tennessee? Can we beat Texas? Can we beat LSU? And so conference play is where you get a lot of those answers figured out. And we've kind of looked ahead all year long. When we all looked at the schedule, we kind of looked at this stretch and we were like, whew, that's a gauntlet. Like, that's going to be tough right there. We'll find out a lot about this Arkansas Razorback team. And here it has. We've learned a lot about our Arkansas Razorbacks, some of which we probably didn't like. The Hogs have now lost 4 of their last 5 series. And I think particularly with LSU, if you guys remember, after the Georgia series, when Arkansas suffered their first series loss of the season, I remember thinking, it's a very close game. Arkansas won big on Friday in game 1, or maybe was that a Thursday, Saturday? I don't remember. I think it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They win big Friday. Then they lose a 1-run game on Saturday, lose a 1-run game on Sunday. So you lose a series, but I was like, you outscored them. And I'm like, honestly, if they turned around and played that series again at Baum, or if they played it on a neutral site, I would have a lot of confidence in Arkansas, honestly. And having watched Georgia, they've won some series, won some games since then. I still kind of feel that way. Like, I didn't feel like Arkansas fell against a better team. A&M, I thought Arkansas didn't play well. That was like the one series that really disappointed me in the moment, where I was like, damn, Like you couldn't get up for this series at home. But even then, like A&M was kind of playing with some desperation. Felt like, hey, if Arkansas runs into them again, I'm not necessarily going to be like, stressed out of my mind, other than maybe pitching to Jace Laviolette. Florida, now I still don't love the Florida matchup, and they're continuing to peak and be really good. I don't know if I would necessarily trade places with them. They probably put a little bit of fear in me. But honestly, guys, LSU is the one team to where I look at that matchup and I say, you know what? That team might be better than Arkansas. Like this might be a matchup where I don't feel super confident. I don't feel like I like have a good warm fuzzy feeling where I'm like, hey, I'm expecting Arkansas to do well here. And I feel like going into the series, I felt LSU was very good. After seeing it play out, I feel maybe worse about it. Like I still like if that ends up being the College World Series Finals. One, of course, we're all going to sign up for it because we would love to go on the trip to Omaha. We'd love to experience that journey there. And hell, a lot of us really just want to see Arkansas get out of a regional, of course. When that moment comes, if Arkansas is in the finals, I have no doubt I will have talked myself into it and been like, oh, yeah, we're going to crush these guys. I'll be talking mess to my LSU buddies and all that. Oh, we're going to get our revenge. I wouldn't feel super confident about it. But I'd also, I think Arkansas getting that win on Sunday helps a lot. But really, when I just look at the two teams and I compare, and I said this yesterday, I feel like this Arkansas team is built to beat bad teams, which, a lot of good Razorback teams do a good job beating bad teams. But like last year's Razorback squad that had Hagen Smith on the mound, had this, pitching that had just across the board. They were number one in ERA, number one in strikeouts, and had a bona fide ace to start it on Friday night that was basically as close to an auto win as you're going to get in college baseball. I felt like last year's Arkansas team was built in a lab to beat good teams, like to win a series 2 out of 3, to win these type of regular season SEC series, and they did a lot of that. They were the SEC regular season champions, but the offense, of course, it's well documented, was one of the worst in the SEC, similar to Texas this year. You kind of always knew they were susceptible to something, whether it was getting upset or just running out of gas or just not being able to match up with other teams' firepower. And we saw that play out in the postseason. I feel like it's the exact opposite this year. And I think obviously, I think this team is a lot more talented, but I think this Razorback team, any team that doesn't have starting pitchers or a reliever that's like a top 3 round type of guy, like a 95 plus, whether it's the right or left side. We've talked a lot about the matchup with right-handed pitchers. But I feel like if you don't have like at least 1 or 2 big time, legit future big leaguers on the mound, this Arkansas lineup is going to score 7-8 runs a game on you. Like it just does seem that kind of simple, and I think that's why Arkansas has been so dominant when they play teams that they're safely better than. It really hasn't been competitive most of the time. It's because I just think that offense that Arkansas has gives you such a higher floor. And so I really think there's obviously a lot of teams. I mean, hell, we've seen 4 out of the last 5 weekends. Texas, obviously, being the one exception here. When Arkansas's played their toughest part of the schedule, Arkansas is not able to just rattle off and impose their will on these teams. It's because these teams have really good arms. And now that's not my way of saying Arkansas only beats bad teams and they choke against the good teams. It's just fundamentally harder to beat good pitching staffs, harder to beat frontline arms, which of course is true all the time. But like I said, last year's Razorback team that wasn't super reliant on offense was kind of equipped to thrive in those atmospheres. And that's why even in the regular season, they made some teams look bad, teams that were much better than them, teams that had much better postseason finishes, because those other teams just had offenses that you could just roll the balls out and beat some of these Kansas States of the world, beat the TCUs of the world or whatever it is. And so I do think it's kind of interesting with this Razorback team. And so if you're coming out of this series and you're looking at Arkansas-LSU and you say, man, that's a team we might face in Omaha, I don't know if we can beat them. I would say to you, that's completely fair. Like I just, eloquated my own kind of concerns of like, is this a really great matchup? There's a lot of consistency with that LSU. Their first 2 starters are really good. Like they're always going to be a tough out. And so I'm not here to tell you you're correct. Like I think it's very fair to say, hey, Florida's one of the hottest teams in the country. I don't love how we match up with them. LSU's maybe the best. They're the number 1 team in the country right now. I don't love how much we match up with them. So like, can this Razorback team really win the title? That I feel like is a completely fair take and a fair question, and one that we'll have to see play out in real time. Like I would love to sit here and tell you, yeah, man, dude, Arkansas, dude, if they face LSU, they're going to sweep them. Like I would love to tell you that. But we don't know, man. Like I think it's going to be tough. But of course, like I said, that's kind of the case all the time. But when you think about this program and what they've done lately and kind of what the expectation and the anxiety is within the fan base, a lot of people have quickly jumped to they're going to choke in the postseason. They're going to lose, and they're not going to be able to win the big one. They're not going to be able to do it when the lights come on. They think they're going to get bounced in the regional. And I really would just say, I don't think this team is necessarily built that way. Now, let me also clarify that this is not my way of saying there's no way Arkansas chokes in the postseason. It's Arkansas. They can always choke in the postseason. That is always an option. I just didn't think that this past weekend was like an example or proof that this team is not built to go on a run, not built to make it to Omaha, not built to even compete in Omaha. And I just think LSU kind of represents Hog fans' biggest fears, that you run into a team that has two really good starters that can limit your offense. And, you wish you had that on the Arkansas side. You wish you had that much stability with your starting rotation. We can have that conversation. That's completely fair. And like I said, that is that standpoint of can Arkansas match up with LSU? That's completely fair. I just don't think it's as dramatic as we like to make it seem sometimes. I would also say that I think Gage Wood is closer to being a legitimate number 2 option than he appeared on Saturday. And that was kind of where things went wrong, and that tone was set, and that's why Arkansas lost that game. And Zack Root, by the way, who we're going to talk about in a minute. I mean, he did his part in terms of the bringing stability to the starting rotation. Before we get into weekend winners, because we're going to do that, of course. And I really, by the way, you'd be stunned by how many weekend winners I have or how many positive things I can say. And that's not just me sunshine pumping. It's just, there were some positive developments for the Arkansas Razorbacks this weekend. I had to really think about who to cut off when it came to limiting it to 5 weekend winners. But before we move on, I do also want to talk about Arkansas being number 8 in the D1 baseball poll. I think they're number 7 perfect game. I saw 6-4 Analytics has them number 2. Now they're obviously a lot more, team rating and overall big picture based. And I think I said this last week. I'm just going to remind you guys once again. You see the rankings, and I saw a couple people in the Arkansas media already doing that, where they're like, "Oh, the rankings are not kind to Arkansas. This is bad. They're number 7, number 8. That means they're 1 series loss away from being out of the top 8. Maybe they're not a national seed." And I would just push back against that. That is not what that means. Just like last week when Arkansas was number 7 in D1 baseball poll and number 2 in the ranking in the D1 field of 64 overall projection, they were number 2. I think that number is going to be kind of similar. They're number 8 in the D1 baseball poll. Probably looking at number 3 or number 4, maybe number 5 overall seed in terms of national seed. And so I still don't think a series loss against Tennessee, certainly if Arkansas is able to, if Arkansas loses this series 2 out of 3 against Tennessee, I certainly don't think they would drop out of the top 8 in terms of the national seed conversation. Perhaps at that point, you maybe would, go to Hoover and you'd look at what some other teams did, whatever. We can talk about it when we get there. But I feel like one would probably clinch it. And if Arkansas wins the series, then of course we're, go ahead and cancel all your flights. You're going to be at home for a while there. And again, with this Arkansas team, I think them being at home and getting the easiest draw possible is relevant in this conversation. But let's get into our weekend winners real quick. We'll just throw them up on the screen. We got a back-to-back winner two back-to-back winners with Cahillo Aloy, who goes 3 for 10 with a home run with, an RBI that came against Cade Anderson, LSU's ace, on Friday night. He scores 3 runs. And I want to focus on this walk part right here. You see 4 walks, 2 strikeouts. Cahillo Aloy has 24 walks on the year now after this weekend. Entered with 20, now has 24. As you guys know, you don't need me to tell you, pretty aggressive at the plate. He really likes to swing the bat. He's really not interested in taking walks for the most part. He's that kind of guy. He's thinking about what he can do. He's not worried about, let me watch this pitch. Let me take a patient approach. He's usually going up there hacking. Him working 4 walks is notable. Guys, Cahillo Aloy went 12 games before this weekend without drawing a single walk. Now, of course, he hit pretty well. He's hitting 356 on the year. He's been one of Arkansas's most dangerous hitters start to finish. So, of course, we kind of understand the trade-off. But the dude went 12 games without taking a walk. He had never had a weekend all year where he had 2 multi-walk games. That's what he did in this game. He walked twice on Friday, twice on Sunday. Also had a hit in all 3 games. I think this was, I'm not saying Cahillo Aloy now is about to move forward and just be, the poster child for patience at the plate necessarily. But I think that's very important because this is a guy that's done a lot of damage. By this point in time, teams know about Cahillo Aloy. Of course, they know about his brother, so they kind of know and assume, hey, this guy can swing it and he can hurt us. But he's now done it in SEC play. He's hitting over 300 in SEC play. He's on the scouting report. It's very important for him to start taking those walks. I know everybody's down on Brent Iredale, but a big part of why Brent Iredale has still been so effective is because he walks minimum 3 times a weekend, sometimes 5 and 6 times. Sometimes he'll walk 3 times in a game. He's also been hit by a ton of pitches. And so you add it with the power, the defense, and all that. And that's why, for everyone that's like, oh, Brent Iredale goes over 7. Why don't they just bench him? That's because he's been, one of their more effective overall guys. I think if Cahillo, he's got the power, the hit tool is clearly there. He starts mixing in some walks. I think that could be a very positive development for the Arkansas Razors. And now Cahillo is actually on a 9-game hit streak as well. And, I think at this point, we can confirm the guy's good. He does just enough in every weekend, and you kind of just know that threat is there. He can leave the park at any moment. He's starting to go the opposite way a good bit. He had a couple base hits to the opposite field this weekend. Just a really good overall threat, man. And the sample size has grown. I'm really excited about his development. And keep in mind, the dude's a true sophomore. And so there actually might be a little bit more in the tank for Cahillo Aloy. Who knows? I mean, this is a guy that was, 16 months ago was a pitcher. So who knows what the ceiling might be for what he can bring to the table. I think this time next year, it's going to be very interesting to see his draft prospects. Our second repeat winner is Zack Root, who obviously had the huge game against Texas last week, goes 8 innings, scoreless, was not quite as dominant in this game, 6 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, does not walk anybody, and puts together 6 strikeouts. The reason I have Zack Root, and of course he pitched in the game that Arkansas lost, he left the game with a 4-2 lead. He left in line for a win against Cade Anderson, against this LSU team who we've talked about a lot on the show as like the standard that we compare ourselves to, and their starting pitching is what everyone wants to have. Arkansas's ace went out there and outpitched their ace on Friday night, and he should have gotten the win. He did not. Of course, Aiden Jimenez and Aiden Jimenez was not able to kind of keep that lead, his first blown save of the year. But I thought Zack Root was awesome. And, as much as we talk about, like I said, you go into these weekends and you're like, man, how are our guys going to look in this moment? How are we going to match up against the best in the country? I thought that was really cool for Zack Root to go out there on the road in Baton Rouge and take it to an LSU lineup, man. Held them down really well. I thought that was really big time stuff. And so very encouraging. That's now 2 weeks in a row where Zack Root's been really good. Let's hope he's turned the corner. I'm sure it's not going to always be sunshine and rainbows, but this is a guy that we've known all along, had the stuff, had the mentality, has some experience, throws a ton of strikes. Like on paper, checks every box, makes total sense. I think Hog fans at this point should feel a lot better about him in that number 1 starting role. Just got to get some help around him. Our third weekend winner is Justin Thomas. Goes 5 for 11 with a double, a walk, a stolen base, scores 3 runs. He had 3 hits on Friday night, had a hit on Saturday and a hit on Sunday. Justin Thomas is hitting over 300 on the year now 302 overall. He's hitting 312 in SEC play, which kind of snuck up on me, man. I did not realize how effective he had been in SEC play. Of course, we've had him as a weekend winner before. He showed off some power, done some good things, had some good moments. He is now leading Arkansas in on-base percentage at 463. How about that, man? Like just snuck up on everybody out of nowhere. He's also slugging 563. He's also quietly got a 6-game hit streak going as well. Justin Thomas, man, unreal, dude. I think this is a guy that, going back to the fall, there was always a question of like, all right, is he going to be a starter for Arkansas, everyday guy, or just a guy off the bench? Is he going to play left field? Is he going to play center field? We kind of, we knew he was in that mix of the top 4 or 5 outfielders. I was not super sold back in the fall that he was going to be an everyday player and that he was going to be super effective for Arkansas. I definitely didn't think the dude was going to be hitting 300 in the SEC, man. Hitting 312 in SEC games. Like, that's big time stuff. He just continues to get better. Good athlete. And of course, started his career at Georgia. Didn't go well for him there. To see the evolution he's made, he's gotten just better and better each year, has gotten so much better. Hell, even back in the fall, like I'm talking about, the progress he's made since then. I mean, that's big time stuff. He's playing so well to the point where I'm like, damn, this dude has a 1,000 OPS in the SEC, really good outfield and center field. Like, he's probably going to get drafted at this point. And so we'll see what his prospects are like. I worry he's played so well that we're not going to get a senior year out of Justin Thomas, but we'll see how that situation goes. But no matter what, I feel like he's just been a force for Arkansas in that 9 spot. And I think that the context of him being the 9-hole hitter is important, because kind of as a second leadoff guy. That's kind of what you want out of your 9-hole. I don't think you could build a guy in a lab that fits that role better. Now, I obviously see the case for he's been so effective leading the team in on-base percentage, in top 3 or 4 in OPS overall. Like, I can see the case for moving him up, but I think it's really cool to have that danger down there in the lineup. Another guy who's brought a ton of danger to that bottom of the lineup that is now, I think he hit 5th on Sunday, is Ryder Helfrick, who went 6 for 10 this weekend, 4 doubles, 4 runs, also drew a couple walks. Ryder Helfrick, man, I understand he's very controversial. I know that we've talked about him on the show a lot, and I know the people are really not thrilled about the defense, which is a lot more fair. If we're going to talk about Ryder Helfrick being a winner of the weekend, we should also point out was not charged with an error on Saturday, but had a really, really big oopsie there in the 7th inning, which allowed the game to end, allowed that 13th run to come home. That's a little bit of a tough one. You could also maybe point to the wild pitch that happened in the 10th inning with Gabe Gekle on the mound, which allowed Jared Jones to go from first to second, which kind of it went from second to third. That wound up being a little bit of a big play in the game because it allowed LSU to win the game without getting that second hit. But I will say, it's not as simple as just Ryder Helfrick's good at hitting and he's bad at defense. We've talked about his receiving. He's one of the better receivers in all of college baseball. That's one thing that the coaching staff's always been very high on, his ability to do that. He's also calling pitches. He does a pretty good job controlling the run game. The only time you see guys steal against Ryder is whenever pitchers refuse to hold the runners on. And like we say, in the SEC, it's not a ton of teams that really run the ball a ton. And so, like, I'm not saying this guy's perfect. I understand why there's some frustration when he makes a miscue defensively, when he gets in his own head and does something stupid behind the plate. I get all that. But I also am just very pleased with not only the progress he's made, because he's a lot better there now than he was a year ago. I imagine this time next year when he's a junior, he's going to be even more stable behind home plate. He's learning, he's growing, he's evolving there defensively. And it also, you just got to point out, the dude is hitting 314 overall. He's hitting 337 in SEC play, leads Arkansas in OPS during SEC games. And now you see the 4 doubles there. He's now got 10 doubles on the year, along with 2 triples. He also has 8 home runs. I think there's a little bit more power left in the tank of Ryder Helfrick. We'll see if he's able to tap into that down the stretch. I'm sure the average, he's hitting 314 right now. I'm sure that maybe will come back down to earth a little bit. But we're talking about a true sophomore in his first year as a full-time starting catcher in the SEC. And he's been more effective against SEC pitching than he was against non-conference teams. I think that says a lot about him and his upside, and kind of what you see why he is kind of billed as why he's been viewed as such a big prospect. And, I say it all the time, but like, it's always tough when these guys don't play to their capabilities. It's very easy to point to them and be like, why is DVH playing this guy? Why is DVH pitching? Why is DVH? We're going to talk about Gabe Gekle in a second. Why is Gabe Gekle starting? Why are they doing that? I don't understand. And it's like, well, he throws 98 and throws 4 pitches. He's one of the top prospects in his class. Like, it kind of makes sense. Just didn't work out. Anytime a guy doesn't do well, we're always just like, we're questioning the process, and we're like, we don't understand the concept of it. And that's kind of where I've been with Ryder Helfrick the whole time. Like, I'm not saying he's perfect, and I understand he's going to have his ups and downs. And early in the year when he wasn't as effective offensively, I certainly understood it a little bit. But it's like, do you at least understand the concept of why this guy is why he is the starting catcher without a shadow of a doubt? Why he is billed as one of the top 25 prospects in his class? Like, why he's got a chance to play baseball for a really long time? Like, do you at least get it? You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to love him. You don't have to, maybe you think, hey, we've had better defensive catchers. I'd love to have more of a defensive guy back there, whatever. But you at least have to acknowledge the dude is kind of on track to be one of the best hitting catchers we've ever seen at Arkansas. Michael Turner, his final year at Arkansas was pretty much put together between him and James McCann's junior year. Those are pretty much the 2 catcher hitting seasons that really stand out. I'm sure you guys could point out to me, some older guys that really balled out. I'm just thinking in my lifetime, the last 25, 27 years, there's really not been a ton of really good offensive seasons to sift through. Ryder Helfrick's season that he's putting together as a sophomore at the plate stacks up pretty well with all those. He's pretty similar to what he's actually going to end up the year with, a little bit more power, a little bit more juice than Michael Turner brought, but pretty similar production to what Michael Turner brought as a senior. And so you think about what Ryder Helfrick can do as a junior next year, potentially. Maybe he taps into some of that power a little bit more. You're talking about a guy that he might leave Arkansas, and we might say that is the best hitting catcher we've ever seen in program history. And And of course, we want to see him continue to make strides defensively. He's a good athlete, like it'd be one thing if this guy was just incompetent behind the plate. On paper, skill set wise, like there's no reason this guy can't be a frontline catcher in the SEC and be a guy that plays the position for a really long time. Got a good throwing arm as well. Like skill set wise, there is a lot to like with Ryder Helfrick. I think you're kind of starting to see that evolution. And he's starting to turn into an actual full, well-rounded baseball player rather than just a prospect with this hypothetical skill set that we maybe will or won't see. I think you're starting to see him in real time grow up and become, I hate to say it, guys, one of the best catchers in the country. Like he's one of the best catchers in the country. I imagine he's got a chance to be an all SEC catcher this year. Next year, going into next year, he's going to be unanimous preseason all SEC, preseason all American, all that jazz. And you guys are just gonna have to eat that. Like, I'm sorry. I hate to be the one to have to break this news to you, but it is true. And speaking of California Razorbacks who are doing good things as true sophomores, Gabe Gekle I thought was really good. Now he did get the loss on Friday night. And as you know, these weekend winners, it's not always just who are the 5 best players, who had the 5 best showings or whatever. Sometimes the context and the weight of the performance matters. And I think that really applies here with Gabe Gekle. And the numbers, by the way, pretty good. Goes 3 1/3, gives up just 1 run on 2 hits. And that last run in the 10th inning was driven in via sac fly. He doesn't walk anybody, and he strikes out 5. These are the kind of outings we saw from Gabe Gekle a lot last year. So it shouldn't be that big of a surprise. And of course, he's thrown the ball really well since transitioning to the bullpen. He's got a 117 in 15 1/3 innings so far since moving to the bullpen. So the dude's been pretty much dominant, 20 strikeouts in those 15 innings as well. The stuff has always been there. He's throwing more strikes. He walked 4 guys against Florida a few weeks ago. And so in his 15 bullpen innings this year, he's walked 7. 4 of those came in that Florida game. That kind of was a little bit of an outlier. He's not really that type of guy. Usually fills up the strike zone pretty well. Gabe Gekle, man, I was really encouraged with his performance, the way he's looked at on the mound. But I also do think there's just something to the process of like having a guy where, like Hagen Smith last year, where we just knew every Friday night, hey, Arkansas is playing on Friday. Hagen Smith's on the mound. The other team ain't scoring much. We're in a good situation. It just gives the entire team confidence. And I felt like Arkansas played better when he was on the mound. I felt like Arkansas played better when Blaine Knight was on the mound. It just kind of sets that tone. This, by the way, and Gabe Gekle, he's made his transition to the bullpen. It has not necessarily been in a closing role, which is pretty much what he was doing the other day. Like in that Florida game that I talked about, Aiden Jimenez came in after Gekle. They had it flipped where it was Gekle to Jimenez. This was the first week since Gekle's moved to the bullpen where they flipped it and had it set up for Gekle to be the closer there. And they kind of forced him into that situation with the way that it played out. But that has not always been the case. I think there's something to being in a 4-4 game, having your dude on the bump and him just going out there. He comes in, he strikes out the first 2 hitters he faces, heart of the LSU lineup. I thought that was big. That was something that Gekle excelled at like crazy as a freshman. The numbers on inherited runners versus how many of those inherited runners scored, it was through the roof. Gekle bailed Arkansas out of a lot of bad situations last year. He looks a lot more like that guy and a lot more like the guy that we thought we were getting this year with Gabe Gekle. It's just coming in a bullpen role. And so will that always be the case? Maybe they move him back to the starting rotation. I don't know. But all we know is it does seem like he's back on track. Really like the stuff, really like the mentality makeup of what he's been doing out there. Seems like he's certainly found his stride, found something that works for him. I think it completely changes the dynamics of this Razorback bullpen and is certainly a positive development for them. Let's run through a few quick honorable mentions before I let you guys get out of here. Because like I said, I had to cut it off at 5, but there are plenty of worthy candidates. First guy I want to say something about is Reese Robinette, who goes 2 for 9 on the weekend, has 2 RBI, scores a run, works a couple walks. Not great stats, right? I would say he did start off 0 for 3 against Cade Anderson, LSU's big Friday night starter lefty. That was a tough matchup for Reese since then. So he finished the weekend 2 for 6. So that's something. But also kind of by default, Reese gets 2 starts in this weekend at first base. Rocco Pepe gets the 3rd one. Rocco Pepe, it just isn't happening. I love the guy, love his personality, love his makeup. I don't know if he was ever healthy this season. I don't know if he's healthy now or if he's just kind of trying to be tough and play through it. It just hasn't happened, man. I don't know what happened. This is a guy that hit 327 with 14 home runs last year at Fresno, was really good for Arkansas in the fall, looked great in the spring leading up to the season. It just hasn't happened, man. And I think we just got to take the L on this one. But I say all that to say, I think Reese Robinette this weekend with his performance, with the hit he had there in, was that the 7th, 8th inning there against LSU, giving Arkansas a key insurance run, working a couple walks. Like, I think he may have by default kind of clinched this first base position. Now, I do want to give a shout out to Gabe Frazier, who hopefully is going to be able to return to action sometime soon here. Maybe he gets some starts at second base and you move over Cahillo back to first base. But I think Reese Robinette, until further notice, is going to be continuing to get a ton of starts there at first base. He's kind of the guy, man. And I don't think he's going to leave this lineup anytime soon. He's going to have plenty of clutch ABs for Arkansas down the stretch. We'll see if he can come through, but I'm just really happy for him that he's in this spot. He stayed the course, and he had some good at-bats this weekend, which I think it doesn't take much to win the first base job these days at Arkansas. But I think at this point, he kind of is the guy. Cam Kojal also goes 4 for 12 with a home run. A lot of times we don't talk about the good guy, like the players that are good all the time. We don't talk about those a ton. So Cam Kojal is not a winner of the weekend, but I thought he was really good. Had the big opposite field home run in a left-on-left matchup against Cade Anderson. That's impressive. Christian Fouch and Cole Gibbler, awesome on the mound, combined for 3 scoreless innings pitched. That is a very positive development for the Arkansas Razorbacks. If those guys can combine for 3-4 innings between the two of them each week in any context, I think this is a good thing for I think that's big time for Arkansas. Both guys have the stuff to do it. I think that's the right kind of role. We talk all the time about finding the best way to use all these pieces. I think those are two guys that Arkansas is really starting to figure out what situations they thrive in. High leverage, dude. Arkansas was protecting the lead. I think it was 5-3 whenever Christian Fouch came into the game, maybe 4-3. And same for Cole Gibbler, who came in and cleaned up a little bit. I mean, I think Christian Fouch left 1 runner on with 2 outs, comes in, strikes out Derek Curiel. Like, that's big time stuff. Another guy who came in before those guys ended up getting the win on Sunday, Dylan Carter, goes 2 more scoreless innings every single week, just gives Arkansas a good outing, gives them a chance to win, does his job, just is the expert when it comes to doing his job. He's a guy that all year long we talked about. He's getting some of this slop work of like 9-0. I'll just throw Dylan Carter out there. Oh, it's 14-1. It's the 7th inning. We're about to run roll. Just throw Dylan Carter out there. He never complained, always took the ball, and he just got thrust into more and more high leverage situations. I guess it was the Georgia series is when they first started really mixing him into those high leverage game on the line. Vanderbilt as well. He pitched in a big situation against Vanderbilt. But the dude's been awesome, man. It's been awesome to see that. Now has a 2.23 ERA for the year, 2.50 ERA in SEC games. SEC hitters are hitting 138 against Dylan Carter. Good Lord. The dude's been unreal. Really happy for him. Those are your honorable mentions. Those are your weekend winners. Hope this was a productive episode of the Baumbastic Podcast. Certainly a lot better than last night's. Appreciate you guys for being here. We'll be back tomorrow. What are we going to talk about? Who the hell knows? You got to show up and find out. We do have a shortened week here, so Wednesday will be our big preview weekend. Might have some things in the work for the Tennessee series. We shall see. But going to be a fun week on the Baumbastic Podcast. Going to be a fun week for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Can't wait to be back at Baum giving you guys the coverage. Appreciate you for being here. Have a great Monday night, everyone, or Tuesday morning, whatever it is.